Hello, Bobby Torres of Frightbox Recording here, and in this video, I'm going to share with you 3 super straightforward EQ techniques to help add additional clarity to your heavy guitar tracks within your mix. And be sure to stick around to the end because I think you're going to find the third technique pretty surprising. Let's dive into it. Okay, so without any further ado, I'm gonna play an audio sample back for you, and then I will reveal to you the 3 EQ techniques that I'm utilizing to create maximum clarity within this dense, heavy mix. Now, these techniques are universal, whether you're producing or recording rock or metal, they will work, believe me. Let's check out the sample. So as you can hear, the mix is really thick, really dense, and you can hear all of the individual guitar tracks in a crystal clear manner, which is what we all want. And the truth is, it really isn't that complicated. And this leads me to technique number 1. Get rid of the extreme bottom and top end on your rhythm guitars. I like to think of production sort of like a layered cake. The kick drum sits at the very bottom, the bass drum above that, and then your guitars above that. And as far as the super duper top end of your mix, I like to think of the cymbals as that being their home. So if we look at the EQ on my rhythm guitars, so as you can see here in this particular mix, I'm rolling off all frequencies below 95 Hertz on the rhythm guitars, and all of the super duper top above 12K is rolled off on the rhythm guitars as well. Anything below that range or above that range on a guitar is just junk frequency that's gonna clash with the kick, bass, and your cymbals. And we don't want this. As you can tell, my EQ is super straightforward. There are no other notches or filtering going on, just a low pass and a high pass. In most cases, it's pretty much all you're gonna need if you're doing things properly. And we'll talk more about that in technique number 3. Now, on the topic of filtering, this leads me to point number 2, and that is to not be afraid of heavily filtering your lead guitars. Pay close attention to the lead guitar that happens right after the chorus once more. So as you can hear, that guitar is heavily filtered, but it works in context of the rest of the mix. And in this case, I'm rolling off all frequencies below around 200 Hertz and all of the frequencies above 2K. Yes, it seems extreme. The thing is, people try to make all of their guitar tracks super bright and super thick, but there's only so much space in a mix for distorted guitars. So a lot of your background elements and layers can be heavily filtered, and you're not gonna miss it. Now you might be wondering, well, what happens if it's a guitar solo that you want to take center stage? Let's check that out. So for me, when it comes to guitar solos, I am way more heavy with the filtering than my rhythm guitars. Maybe not as heavy as my background layers, but for example, this particular solo here, I'm rolling off all frequencies below 160 Hertz and all frequencies above 6K. It's way more focused in the mid-range than my rhythm guitars, but there's still a little bit more bottom and top to make the guitar sound bright. But again, it's not clashing with the top end of my cymbals and my rhythm guitars, and it has its own space. Fits like a glove. Okay, and finally, number 3 is the big one. And it's what most people don't consider, and it's a massive mistake. And that is to get your EQ right at the source within the tone itself. And let me be more specific. When I say get the EQ right at the source, I don't mean, spend hours and hours dialing in your amp and the high, mids, and lows. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about using the right impulse response or using the right cab and the right microphone placement. I use both amp sims and live tube amps. To me, they're completely interchangeable these days. I really don't care, but it's the exact same concept. What happens is people often will use a really bad sounding IR when producing in the box, or they don't have experience miking up a real cab. And then all of a sudden they try to make, their EQ overly complex and they're trying to notch out frequencies and doing all this crazy stuff. You will drive yourself nuts doing this and you will waste a lot of time. And 9 times out of 10, you will not end up with a result that you are happy with. Let me just show you how much of a difference the IR actually makes. I'm going to solo the rhythm guitars once more. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to load up an IR that I downloaded off the internet. To me, it doesn't sound very good. Let's take a listen. Unusable, really muddy. There is no EQ in the world that's going to fix this. Now I'm going to play the sample back once more and I'm going to load up an impulse response that I captured at my studio that I use on a lot of my mixes. And just listen to how much of a difference it makes in the rhythm guitar tone. It sounds like a blanket is being lifted off of the speakers, and I'm not messing with EQ. I'm not making mixing complicated. All I'm doing is using a solid IR. So the moral of the story is it's worth diving in and picking the right impulse response for your music. Not doing this will lead you down a trail of frustration, and often you will end up blaming your gear when in reality, it's the process that you need to work on. Now, I want you to produce better results with the gear that you're currently using. Again, so many home studio owners get caught up in focusing on gear and overly complicated gimmicky techniques, when all you need to focus on are the basics, but the correct basics. And because of this, I'm giving you direct access for absolutely free to my exclusive training, 4 dead simple ways to massively improve your recordings and mixes. In this exclusive training, you'll learn my #1 technique for prepping heavy guitar tracks that will virtually mix themselves. You'll also learn how to create instantaneous clarity within your mixes using any old stock EQ plugin. You'll learn how to take control over the levels in your mix so that instruments stop fighting with each other within the mix. And then finally, you'll learn how to craft radio-ready vocals using only stock plugins. Again, you can have access to this training for absolutely free by clicking the link below in this video's description. But I just want to warn you, if you have the attention span of a squirrel, do not bother. This training is really in depth. It's an hour long, and it's only meant for people who are serious about taking their productions to the next level. Real results do not come from gear. They come from proper systems and workflows. And this training proves this in the real world. So if you're looking to improve the sound of your productions today and you're willing to put the work in, the training is all yours. So I'm curious to know, are you utilizing these 3 techniques within your guitar mixes? Or is this completely new to you? Or do you tend to overcomplicate things? Don't be shy. Leave a comment in the comment section below and let me know what you've been up to in your home studio. Until next time, drink that Spindrift.